Hi, welcome to KECO. My name's Kev. Today I want to talk to you about the Boss tips. Every tip so far is dedicated more towards the sort of dome shape, where we've wanted to try and go for a flatter shape to try and combat a couple of issues. When we say flat, these aren't absolutely flat. There's a bit of convex to each one of the tips. The larger the tip, the more the curve, and as it starts going down to the smallest tip, then that is a little flatter, but there is still a bit of a convex to it. So the tip sizes are 11mm, 13, 17, 20 and 27. You can purchase these as a kit, so you can have the stainless steel kit and then the peak kit, or you can buy them individually. What I wanted to do today was just try and explain a little bit about why we've gone for a flat tip and what you must do in order to use the tip in the most effective way. I was always a rounded tip user for blending. When we started designing them, when you start really thinking about how they're going to be used, all of a sudden it starts to set off a few different thought processes in there. And when I actually got to use these for the first time in the prototype form, I actually really adapted well to them, and I like them a lot. So these are both our blending hammers, both carbon shafts. One's the aluminium head and one's a striker tip head. Now, the nice thing about the striker tip head is a lot shorter. So if you want to get closer to the panel, this is a really good hammer to use. I mean, there's just over a centimetre and a half in overall length with the tips on. We'll start off with this larger one first. Got a couple of different scenarios on the board here. Now obviously these are vastly exaggerated, but small high spot, sharp high spot, and more of a glue pull style high spot. I haven't gone into the larger crowns because obviously with a crown, the chances are you're going to be using something a lot heavier and it's a little bit softer. So what I've stuck with is the more day-to-day style high spots that we're going to be dealing with. Ordinarily, we're going to anchor our hand and the hammer's going to come down with this pendulum motion. Now, what happens there, if we can do it on this one, on this high spot, is you'll find that really only half of the tip is actually of use. Half of the tip's going to be making contact where we can see it. If we drop into this half, the base of this tip is actually going to disappear in front of the high spot, so our accuracy goes. It's something we're going to adapt without necessarily thinking about. Those of you trying blending for the first time or knocking down with your high spots, that's something that's going to happen to you without you necessarily knowing it. So what you're going to do, you're going to try and adapt to try and help that out. You may even decide that you don't like working with a hammer, so you're going to go back to a knockdown again. So hammer's great because it just gives you that distance. So what we've done, by going to the flatter tip, rather than coming down at this angle, you are going to have to change and run this hammer flat. Okay? Ideally, I want to be as close to the center of the hammerhead as I possibly can. That is a lot easier to see on a flatter tip, purely for that inertia. That's going to send all of my inertia through the center spine into the high spot. Very, very similar to how we're glue pulling. So you think about a glue pull, the center stem does all that work in the middle and then the rest of it flexes. Think of this, but the other way up. What we want to be doing is trying to just adjust our strike so we're a lot flatter. The great thing about that, if we do happen to catch slightly off center, it's not going to matter because our high spot is always going to match up with our tip, no matter where we are. So it's going to be a lot more forgiving for getting things down flat fast. If we've got a high spot like this, and we have a domed tip like this, we've only got one point of contact, and that's dead center. So when we strike those two together, the tendencies is we're going to have a little dimple. Okay, so then we're going to have to match all of those dimples. So if we look at a plan view, we're going to have to start sort of striking round like this in order to try and take things down square. But when we have a flat tip on our high spot, again, it doesn't matter where we tap that, it's going to take this down smooth. So it's going to take it down in levels. It's a lot more forgiving. It's going to take those high spots down a lot quicker. Wherever you see a sharp high spot, we have triangulation. if we strike that in the wrong place, because of the strength of the triangle, what's going to happen is, rather than it spreading apart, it's going to force everything down. So you end up with that sort of deeper crescent with the high spot still at the bottom. So this, when we can strike this square, it's going to take that high spot down quite nice and evenly. The smaller the tip, obviously the more accurate you're going to want to be, but the more intricate you can be in with these smaller bits and pieces. As we start going, especially if you're starting to blend, a lot of people favor a slightly larger tip or somewhere in the midpoint where you can just, it's a little bit easier no matter where you are, you're always going to strike that high spot. But I say we just want to try and keep this as flat as we possibly can to increase the effectiveness of this tip. The reason for the flatness of the shape as well, another visual here to try and help you understand. We've got two scenarios here. We've got a curved tip onto a high spot that's coming down at a bit of an angle, and we've got the flat tip coming down dead flat. Now, it's always a good idea to try and work flat as much as you can. The reason being is the inertia on this is going to be running directly down the center of this tip to this point here. Now, obviously this point isn't the point that's striking, it's over here. So you're going to lose a bit of that direct force. You may find that it's not going to happen in a big way, but you will start forcing stuff the way it may not want to go. Whereas when we work this way, our inertia is coming directly onto our contact point here. Okay, now obviously you've got a much larger area before any flex. Like these are the flexible areas out here on a larger tip, but you've got a much larger center spine to work with to get that accuracy in. So it's just going to help you not have to be mega accurate to start with. It's just going to enable all of the weight of this hammer and the swing of this hammer to actually activate directly into the high spot we're working with. And also the strike on this is going to be a little bit more concentrated, so you probably have to hit it a little less hard. Otherwise we'll start to create those little dimples in there we were speaking about earlier. So if we have a panel that tips away from us and we have a high spot here, this is really, really important to come down flat. I'll use a slightly bigger hammer here. If we're going to be purchased on the panel here now, you can see what's happening. This is going to come down and more than likely make contact with the back edge of the panel here. What it can do, if you imagine we're striking down hard with that, you could run the risk of damaging this edge piece here. So this is where if we're working with concave, convex panels, we just want to be mindful that we are still striking. Now, obviously it gives us a much bigger window of view as well, so it does actually help us. We can still anchor our arm on the panel, but just be mindful that this is striking down in this angle and not coming down like this, because this is what's going to give trouble. You're still going to get that with a more rounded tip, but it's going to be, in this type of scenario, maybe a touch more forgiving. So that's something we just got to bear in mind, that when we strike, we must come down square on that high spot. As always, if you've got any questions or anything, fire them over to us and we'll do our best to answer them. But hopefully this will explain a little bit more about why we've done what we've done to try and help you guys out. So thanks for watching.